Hi, this is Janelle Shane of AIWeirdness.com, and welcome to PROCJAM 2018. And today what I'm going to be doing is running you through how to use a neural net. This one is called textgenrnn, and how to use this neural net to train it on your own text and generate its own attempted approximation of your training text. This is what I use for a lot of the experiments that are on my blog, and so hopefully this tutorial will let you do it too, even if you haven't had any experience with neural nets before, even if you haven't used any deep learning tools, even if you haven't done any coding. Most of this is point and click and typing in a few different commands that I've got that you can cut and paste, and it be designed so that you don't have to do any coding at all. So here we go. First page we're looking at right here. This is a tutorial that I've put up. Link will be in the video description, and kind of walking you through all the various steps. Main thing to note is that we're going to be using two main resources. One is Google Cloud's Deep Learning Virtual Machine over here, and one is textgenrnn, and this is by Max Wolf that he's made available up on GitHub. So this is the neural net. TextGenRNN is the neural net, and the Deep Learning Marketplace on Google Cloud Platform is the actual computer that will be running this. So it shouldn't matter what kind of computer you yourself have, as long as you can connect to Google's Google Cloud stuff. So first step here is you're definitely going to need your own account on Google Cloud Platform and to sign up for their free trial. I think the free trial should be okay for running this tutorial. And so if you don't have that, there's a link to how you would get started with that. So I'm going to start this tutorial assuming that you already have your own account and you're already signed into it. So let's go to the Deep Learning Virtual Machine Cloud Marketplace page here, and close some extra tabs here. All right, so let's go ahead, and this is their pre-configured virtual machine that you can connect to. It's nice because it's already got a bunch of stuff installed for you, so you don't have to install everything from scratch, which is a huge pain. I'm going to scroll down here and just point out the cost per month. So if you're running this with a GPU and you're not using your free trial CPU only stuff, this will cost you if you leave it running. So it's best to only use this virtual machine when you're actually doing something with it, and stop it in the meantime so you don't start getting charged. So let's go ahead and launch one of these things. So launch on Compute Engine. Great. I've got a bunch of tutorials that I've already made before, but let's go ahead and start a new one here. So call it Deep Learning Virtual Machine. And then we're going to be using Tensorflow on this. CPU demo. Let's try that. And we say open. Cool. So we get to choose a name, TensorFlow, CPU 1. I already have a name, something named that because I've already been testing this thing a little bit. So let's do PROCJAM. Put that in there. Okay. And the zone is okay. We get as many virtual CPUs as we want under the free trial. I think it's when we are doing the GPUs that it costs. So let's go ahead and maximize that so things will go a little faster. And here is where, in this case, I'm going to say 0 GPUs, just so everything's the same as what you would see on your free trial. And let us go to, TensorFlow is what we want. There's a bunch of different options depending on what you're working with, PyTorch and other things, or something that doesn't have anything in there. But let's go with standard TensorFlow here. textgenrnn uses TensorFlow. And it's always a good idea to check this GPU using thing if you are using a GPU, because it is actually a pain to install these drivers, I happen to know. All the rest of this is fine, can stay default, so let's just go with deploy. All right, it is being deployed. Things are happening. And I think eventually what's going to happen is that we're going to get some nice getting started stuff in the right when it's all set up and ready to go. Sure. Yep. I'll get this thing into sync here. Done all this. We've done all this. We've done all this. Okay, cool. And we've checked back, and it looks like we have been deployed, our PROCJAM virtual machine here. And so there's a bunch of ways that you can connect to this machine and run commands on it, and they have suggestions for how you could do this from your own machine, and they have a Jupyter notebook for you to do. The method that I'm going to walk you through is using just their SSH browser window, and the reason I'm going to work with that, even though it isn't their usual method that most people use. The reason I'm using this method is that it is pretty computer independent, so it doesn't matter what you've already got installed on your computer or how you would reach your command line or things like that. This should pop up in a new browser window, and you should be able to do everything right from that new browser window. So let's click on SSH, and boom, new browser menu window. And we are transferring our SSH keys to a virtual machine, so this is just some connecting stuff that we have to wait for. And here we go. So good, we are in. And the nice thing about this, as I mentioned, is almost everything is installed for us already on this virtual machine. It's so nice. All we need to do is get textgenrnn. So I've got the install command already in this tutorial text, so we're just going to install this, copy this. pip3, that means we're using Python's installer to do this. And we are specifically using Python 3. So textgenrnn, and we say go ahead, and things are happening. Okay. It's downloading all sorts of dependencies, Python math stuff, and we don't need to get all this ourselves, which is nice. And now it's downloading, it's building all these things, installing our packages, and boom. So to find out if this worked, let's go ahead and get into Python. So Python 3 specifically. And then first thing we've got to do is actually load textgenrnn. And to show you where we are in this tutorial, this is our next step, importing textgenrnn. I'm flipping back and forth because I'm showing you how to use a tutorial, and totally not because I can't remember these commands myself from scratch. Okay. And all right. It says we're using TensorFlow, but we did not get an error, which is the key. Like you may, depending on how this thing is set up. Sometimes I get a whole bunch of wordy information where it's telling you about user settings and so forth, but as long as there's no error here, that's good sign. And so it looks like it has imported textgenrnn without a problem. So now let's go to the next command, of which we're going to create a new model from scratch. And we're just going to call this one test. And this is the command for generating a new model with just default, so there's nothing in parentheses, everything's default, and that should just run. Okay, here's our verbose stuff. This is no problem, we could ignore all that stuff. All right, and then to see, so we should have a new model that's called test, and it should be set up with generic everything, and that includes a generic model that has been pre-trained on like Reddit stuff, news stuff, whatever. But so if we now use this to generate text, we should get some kind of a text and not an error message. Okay, that verbose stuff will eventually go away, I think, but here we go. Yeah, we've got something about future angels and survey price streaming. This is about what we expect. And if we so cool, it's working. We have loaded a trained neural net text generating model. We've used it to generate new default text. But, that's not the text I wanted. I want to generate my own text from my own data file. And to do that, we need to upload our own data file. So we go up here to this gear thing. We go upload file. And I have stored some nice files in here, so let's go with cookie titles. And file transfer, this was a pretty small file, so it didn't take that long. Cool. And so now we've got that file there in this main folder that we're working from. And let me scroll down to get this thing in sync. Now we're going to start training model with our new data set. So we're going to call this cookies because what I have uploaded is a bunch of titles of cookie recipes because that sounds delicious. And let's go ahead and paste that. So what we're doing here is we're making another default model. So instead of calling it test, we're going to call it cookies so we can keep them straight. And now we're going to train from file. And so you would change the file name here depending on what is the actual name of the file that you uploaded. Mine's called cookies titles, so here we go. And it's right here in this main folder because I didn't move it anywhere. So cool. The next thing is number of epochs. That's how many times through the data set it's going to go before it stops. And then this new model equals false. I've set this here, so instead of starting from scratch from a model that's been completely brain-wiped and doesn't know anything about English or about spelling or anything like that, we're going to start out with the model that default model that generated all this stuff, because at least it knows how to use letters and consonants and spaces in English words, so it's not starting completely from scratch. So here we go. Press enter. All right, cool. No error message, that's good. Sometimes you'll get error messages about characters it doesn't like, and usually you have some kind of non-ASCII thing in there that it hates. But in this case, this was a nice clean file with none of that in there, so didn't have to clean it up, just started running. And I have, it's a smallish file, I took that on purpose so that it would finish in a reasonable amount of time. You have 21 seconds in which to go check Twitter or whatever. I think this is a lamp. Okay, here we go. It's done. And it is generating cookies for us. And we've got some default cookies. We've got all sorts of cookies. So here is what we're looking at. We've got a temperature setting, which is like a creativity setting. So that's basically how often the neural net is not going to go with the its top choice of what letter comes next, how often it's going to go with something that's a little bit farther down the list of likelihood. And so the higher the temperature, the more wild it gets. So here we are. Yeah, these are good. Okay. So cool. It worked. And we can specify a temperature if we want. So we can generate more of these. So cookies.generate. And we can specify how many more we want. So let's go with 10. And we can set a temperature. Let's go with 0.8 or something. We haven't seen what that one does. And if we say enter, all right. We're generating cookies. Oh, Facebook cookies. Hones. I love Hones. Okay. Cool. And again, if we were to go with a lower temperature, we would get cookies that are a lot like the ones that it's seen before, really safe names. And we can also choose how each of the cookies starts. So if we do a prefix equals and we type, I don't know, so Mrs., for example, then we get a bunch of cookies that start with Mrs. So I figured it would know kind of how to do with this, what to do with this. Okay, it tried. All right. So we could run it for a little bit longer and it would get a little bit better at this. But let's also, we started from a model that already knew something. And I do want to show you what happens if we start from not this default model, but something completely blank. So we're going to make another model that we're going to call cookies blank. And this will kind of show you just how much it had learned from that previous model there, the previous default model. So cool. We've created a new model called cookies blank so we don't overwrite our old one. And we're going to go ahead and train that one from file, but this time we're choosing new model equals true. And so I will see you in about 1 minute, something like that. Okay, cool. We're done. And you can see it has generated cookies. There has been an attempt, but after one epoch of training, it is a lot less farther along than the other neural net was because it really had to learn a lot from scratch. So there you go. That's the power of transfer learning, the idea that you can sometimes get good results out of a really small data set if you start with a neural net that has already learned a lot from a similar, much larger data set. So, in fact, let's do some more fun with transfer learning. I'm going to take that cookies neural net that we trained before, and I'm going to try training it on a completely different data set. So let's make a new one called snakes. Oops, not capital snakes. That would be confusing. Snakes equals cookies. Cool. So now we've just made a copy of our cookies model, and we called it snakes. And, oh yeah, I've got to upload my new file first, so we saw how to do that. So upload file, yay, snakes. And cool. It's uploaded, same folder. So I've already prepared, this command here with the snakes file name already filled in. So let's go ahead and run that. I said let's go ahead. Yep. Okay. So we're training our snakes model from file for one epoch. And actually, boom, Control-C. We're going to stop it right there. So this will Control-C will be stopping whatever command we're running. And so in this case, I didn't want it to go for an entire epoch because I wanted to see the sort of situation we have right now where there is a neural net that has been only training for snakes on a little bit, but still kind of remembers a lot about its past life as a cookie generator. So let's go ahead and generate some snakes and see what we have here. And yeah, I think we are getting definitely some cookie overflowing into the snake's land, perhaps. And now if we keep going on the snakes, then it will actually, for another epoch or two, it will forget all about the cookies. We won't be getting any more cranberries and cakes and things in there. It'll all be snakes. So, cool. That's some fun things to get you started. There's a bunch of other options in textgenrnn, like you can have it instead of generating individual things by letters, you can have it use entire words as its building blocks, so that kind of helps it sometimes if you're having it generate longer phrases. There's also a mode where instead of having it generate each line independently, it can learn to generate a long text like a cookbook recipe or something like that. So go check that out, explore that. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you the last step, the key step, which is that we're going to stop our instances once we've started them. So let's go to a main page here that lists the virtual machine instances we have. So, oh, come on. Okay, I'll just click on the link. That's what it's for. And when this loads, we will see, okay, cool. So this is the instance that we're connected to right now. It's the only one I've got running. And this is our PROCJAM instance. It looks different from the other ones. So to stop that, I'm just going to go here and say stop. Yes, I know what I'm doing. And we're going to stop this instance. And it'll take a few seconds to do, but yep, command SSH turned gray. And eventually this stop sign is going to turn back to a gray stop sign like the other ones. And cool, there you have it. If you want to connect again and use this virtual machine in the future, you would choose Start here, and then under here you would just click on SSH to connect once that's enabled in black again. All right. If you do any experiments with this, please let me know. Tag me on Twitter, Mastodon, whatever, and show me what cool stuff you came up with. And again, this tutorial here is going to be linked to in the show notes, so you can go ahead and get started. Thanks.